So we've heard from quite a few people on what it's like to be a traveling PTA, but we kind of have the other side today, which I'm super excited for. And we dive deep into like a lot of details that we haven't gotten into before. You look like you're about to say something.
I was. What I was gonna say is, and we'll touch on it a little bit later too.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like this field for PTAs, like sometimes you feel like there's really nowhere else to go, and that's when travel was a great option because you get to see more of the world. You get to work in different settings. Like there's so much variety in travel, which is great. But today we have Nicole, and she takes that a step further and went into the recruiter role, which is a whole nother angle. And it's great that we get to see that there's so many different avenues that PTAs can take. And today is just yet another example of that.
Yeah, and she, like, and that's one of the things that we will touch on is, like, how does her being a PTA in this role help her? So you feel like you're still using your knowledge and your skill set in just, like, a different type of role. So without that, well, without saying more further ado, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Yeah. Me either. Let's go ahead and get into it.
You're listening to the PT Assistants Podcast with your hosts, Ken
and Laura. Thanks for joining for another exciting episode.
All right, guys, we are back with Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited for this. I'm really excited to see kind of, how...
A whole new angle.
Yes, a whole new angle. Seeing a different way we can go in this field. So let's go ahead and just start, and let's talk about a little bit about how you got into the physical therapy background. How long have you been working? Where you worked? And just a little bit about yourself in general, too.
Yeah, so I'm super excited that you guys decided to have me on the show. So I started out in physical therapy. I actually laugh because in high school, I thought that physical therapy was boring, and I thought I never wanted to go into it. I was an athletic trainer, a student athletic trainer at my high school, and
Nice.
I remember just being like, "Oh, that PT stuff is like, no, I don't. I want to be on the. I want to do the taping. I want to do the, like the sidelines and all that kind of stuff." And then,
On the field.
Look, here we are. So life just takes its lovely turns, on its own. But I initially really got into PT after my undergraduate. I got my undergrad in exercise science at Purdue University.
Woo-hoo.
Go Boilermakers.
Nice.
Not the school, but the exercise science.
I mean, I'm a Boilermaker through and through. That's one thing about me.
I'll give you that.
For sure. That's where my heart stands. But so I had to do an internship at an outpatient clinic and outpatient PT clinic, and I was a PT aide and got to kind of work with patients. That was the first time I really had like hands-on and that kind of stuff. And that's where I really decided that PT was a thing for me. And after I graduated, I continued working with them for a while. Well, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with my life and if I wanted to do PT school or PTA school, and ended up applying to both. Yeah, and
always the debate.
Oh yes, I applied for PT schools and didn't get into any. So that's the life. So it's so hard. It is so hard. And especially when your GPA is just like so close, I had like a 291 or something, and it's like, oh, that's like half a class. If I would have gotten a grade one better on an exam, I would have been there or something. It's just like,
it's the worst.
It's so bad. But ended up getting into PTA school like really quickly, like got an interview, and then like the next week I was interviewing and like got accepted on the spot pretty much, and was starting like a month later. Like it was like a real quick turnaround. I was like, all right, well, I guess, that's where I'm going. That's what I'm doing. It kind of fell into my lap, and, that's, I guess that's what the plan for me is. So we're going to roll with it. So I went to University of Evansville in Southern Indiana, I'm from Central Indiana originally. And went through all of that, and that's kind of how I got into PT.
Nice. I know that's how I feel like a lot of us start off and we're like, we're gonna go to PT school, and never mind, no, we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
both on that same boat.
honestly, at the end of the day, like I was, and I was like, all right, well, I'll do PTA school, and then I'll always just apply. I'll just apply for a bridge program, and I'll go get my PT that way. Yeah, I got
That
into
was gonna be
PTA, and I
my
was
next
like,
question.
first of all, loans. Second of all, I don't want more loans.
I want the
Third,
paperwork.
I kind of don't want the paperwork. Exactly. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
kind of like doing this. The PTA thing's not too bad. Like,
Exactly. It's funny because when I was in school and I always wanted to go and get, my doctorate in PT, and my mom kept always saying, like, don't do it. You're going to spend more time doing paperwork than working with the patients. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just become a PTA. And I was like, no, Mom, I really want to become a doctor. Because I also wanted just to be Dr.
I think it's just
Laura.
a title. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not
that's
gonna
where it was
lie.
for
I
me
want
too.
to
It
be
was like a
Dr.
personal
Laura.
goal. I want to prove that I can do it.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
a thing.
I'm grateful I did it. And the same thing, I was like, oh, I'll just do bridge program. Like, I'll look into this later on. And now I'm like, yeah, no. That's a lot of debt and a lot of paperwork. No thanks.
Yeah.
So you're not alone on that. So what type of setting did you work in for a while?
So I initially started in the skilled nursing SNF setting, and lived the SNF life for a good 3 years or so.
Impressive.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I decided that I was going to try home health, and that's pretty much the two settings that I've only really ever worked in, which not mad about that. So,
Did
No,
you have
I
any
was.
other settings for your rotations or anything?
I did do a level 1 trauma center for hospital,
Okay.
and then I
Ooh.
did like a
Wow.
subacute. Like I didn't actually have a SNF rotation. I did like it was like a step down from a
Mhm.
hospital, so it was more
Okay.
like your like immediate stroke rehab and like that kind of stuff, which I actually ended up really loving. But then
How was
realized that there's not
the
that many
trauma
options.
center?
It was really good. It was at University of Kentucky, so I got to see a lot of
Okay.
really cool stuff. Um, and just working in a hospital of that size and magnitude was really cool to see just kind of how it works with PT, and I thought it was a really good experience.
Oh yeah,
That is
absolutely. That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Here I worked in we call it an acute skilled nursing facility. So it's the right, you get discharged from the hospital, but you're not good enough to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So they go right in. So it's the same thing. Like you saw a lot of stroke or just post-ops even sometimes.
Yeah.
But how is transitioning from going from skilled nursing to home health?
Honestly, not too bad. Like, because in home health, they're either coming straight from the hospital, um, because they have the support at home to be able to do home health, or they're coming from the SNF, and they've had, you know, like already SNF rehab pretty much. So it's
Hmm.
pretty much the same. It's just in their home and they're slightly more mobile. I guess I would even argue sometimes they're not, it would be close to SNF level. If they had the family support and they can come home, then, come home.
You just get a little
So
more creative with how you're going to do your exercises and programs, that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, edge of
Yeah.
bed, walking outside, going around the neighborhoods, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't too bad. I actually really liked it, and it was a really good mix too of, in the SNF you don't see as much ortho, like knee replacements and that kind of stuff, and so home health I got to see a little bit more of that. So I got to, you know, dig back into my ortho knowledge and,
Mm-hmm.
get to
Hmm.
kind of see some of that, and in SNF you don't see as much.
Hmm.
Improvement in people necessarily all the time. So with the knee replacements, and the hip replacements, you get to see that, week by week they're improving in strength, and they're excited because they can, walk without their walker now, or,
Yeah.
go up and down
All those little
stairs, and like,
milestones.
so it's like a
Yeah.
little bit more motivating and exciting to kind of do, and work on that range of motion, and um, sometimes I guess feel like a real therapist, versus just trying to motivate people to get out of bed, you know?
Or just even
I,
just to do therapy. That's how I
Yeah.
originally hurt my Achilles was I had a patient who was on the third denial pretty much, and I was like, look, if you don't do it, you're literally only here for this. They're gonna charge you. And I was like, man, that was the worst. That's the only thing I truly hated about working in a sniff was because of the fact that the denial rate is just so high, and you're just like, why, guys? Why?
Yeah.
At least in the place I was at, like, they all wanted to be there, but they didn't want to put
Do
in any
anything.
work. Yeah.
And then you
That
have
was
productivity standards, from upper
Oh my
management
gosh,
on top
yes.
of you too. And it's just like, I think honestly, that's what burnt me out, towards the end of it was just, all of the higher up and basically our healthcare system in general, just
Mm-hmm.
burnt me out. And I was like, I need to try a new setting. This isn't good.
And I think like the big thing that I like about home health, like I haven't done home health and I've been curious for quite some time, and we've talked to a couple people that do home health. One thing that I really like is that you get to use like their own environment.
Yeah.
So Laura and I are both from outpatient clinics, and we can simulate a lot of the things that they have. Like, oh, I have like this much clearance, or it's this far from my bedroom to the bathroom, so you can work on ambulation and all that. But when you're working in home health, like you get a way better feel of, okay, this is how much you need to walk, this is how much strength you need, your endurance, and just kind of taking them outside, like, oh, let's go walk to your mailbox and things like that. Like, it doesn't really feel like therapy. It just feels like, I don't know, just kind of going back to your life.
Yeah.
That's say Ken's just hanging out with them.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
like, I'm
also
good,
provides its
chilling.
own sets of challenges too. If you get
Oh, yeah.
somebody who's got a messier home or,
Yeah, see,
something
that's
like
right.
that, or
Mhm.
like more stairs, and you're like, you should not be doing stairs ever, and they're just like very
Gosh.
unsafe, and you're just like, oh no, like,
Or you got the 50 rug person where they've got rugs on top of
yes.
rugs on top of
Oh,
rugs, and
yes.
you're like, oh my gosh, you can barely clear the floor.
Right? Yeah.
I think
100%.
the smells is turning Laura off as
No,
well.
the smells
She
are
keeps
what
saying how much
I
she
don't know if
can't do
I
it.
ever do home health for.
There were
To do that
honestly,
reason.
I now I can't say I haven't done home health all over, only just kind of I did it in the San Francisco area and then in San Diego area. And so both are like pretty nice areas. So I mean, I
Mhm.
probably not go back to Indiana and do home health or, somewhere else, where you're like, oh, like those nasty
Yeah,
houses might
about
be a
that.
little bit more populous,
I'm okay.
but my favorite part, honestly, was like the office views. You're from your car and you're driving around, like you can see the city that you're in, especially as a
Yeah.
traveler. You get to explore the area. Like I remember just driving around, like you turn a corner in San Francisco and it's like, oh, there's the ocean. Like, that's not bad.
Hey,
It's like
Yeah, that's
I'll
got a
take
nice
just
that.
another
view of my
day,
office here.
in the office.
Out here,
That's pretty
it's turned.
awesome.
Oh look, there's another dirt
More
rock.
dirt.
Yeah,
Got
right.
it. Dirt and rocks everywhere.
Oh look, more dirt. Hey, that's a new patch of dirt. But before we get into kind of where you're at now, what just to kind of get to know you just a little bit more. I know you said you're now in like San Diego region, so living that beach life. But are you got any fun hobbies to do? Do you like to go surfing? I know we kind of talked a little bit beforehand, and you got that cute little puppy. Not a
Yes,
puppy, a
I
puppy.
have a puppy. He just turned a year. His name's Diego.
Okay, it was puppy.
Yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
he's adorable, but also, a little turd
Oh yeah,
sometimes
just
too, because
say
he's
no more. Yep.
still a puppy.
Nice.
He's got a lot of attitude, but he's a good boy, mostly until he's not. But he's a good boy. So we love him. I live with my boyfriend, and he's a travel nurse. Well, not a traveler
Nice.
anymore because we decided to do perm now in San Diego. But yeah, I'm originally from Central Indiana, and decided to do travel and get out of the Midwest. But originally, I grew up as a synchronized swimmer, actually, and then picked up
Hey.
That's
lacrosse
awesome.
right before college
Wow.
and played club through college at Purdue. So I've always been really like around sports and all of that kind of stuff, my whole life. And like I said earlier, I'm a Purdue Boilermaker, tried and true. So I follow, Purdue basketball and football and all of that stuff. And whenever I'm home, I make sure I make a trip back to campus too, because
That's
it's a
awesome.
great place. Kind of
Nice.
home, a second home.
Hmm.
And then been out in California for the last 4, 5 years, probably going on 5 years now. Kind of traveling around. Spent my COVID couple years in Sonoma, California, which was not a bad place to get stuck for COVID at all. And
Gorgeous area.
yeah, exactly. And my COVID project was actually to get a wine certification. So I am certified in
Oh.
wine as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a wino at heart as well. So got that from my mom for
So
sure.
she really was like, I'm perfect here. Come
Yeah.
in, you can last a little longer. I'll stay here all day long.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was actually on a travel contract out there and COVID hit and they were actually going to cut my contract and I was like, I'll stay. I'll stay perm, I'll go perm and I ended up going perm for about a year and a half. At that point we didn't know what was going on and everyone was losing their jobs left and right. So I was like, all right, I'll
Yeah.
stay.
Take it.
This is not the worst place to get stuck. Like I'd rather not risk it anywhere else.
You're like, however, my
That's a
bank
good
account
point,
might
yeah.
disagree
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
But my wine bottles don't.
exactly. Oh, my collection has dwindled quite a bit since those times, but it was a pretty solid collection.
Did you start doing traveling since like right after school?
Pretty much, yeah. So I guess we can kind of jump into that too. But after PTA school, a good friend of mine was a travel nurse, and her husband was actually a classmate of mine in PTA school, and she's the one that got me into traveling or talking about traveling. And she had always dreamed of going to Alaska for a travel contract and ended up getting a contract there in Ketchikan, Alaska, and was like, "Come with us, like you and you and my husband can study for boards together and we can explore and all of that kind of stuff." So we, cut down my closet and, went the minimalist life and I moved out to Alaska with them and spent a couple
Wow.
months, studied for boards. Kind of crazy. I'm kind of surprised I passed after, living in Alaska, studying for boards, lots of distractions out there, hikes and scenery and all of that kind of stuff.
I heard it's
Everything so
beautiful.
much.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, but honestly, like no regrets. Like I passed. That's all that matters. So
Right? You just gotta get that passing
Right.
check mark. You're good.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what score
I don't
you
even
get.
care what score I got. Yep. As long as I
Exactly.
I
passed.
don't even remember what I got. I just know I passed.
right.
That's all that matters.
So
Feels like I know mine.
yeah, I know my score too, but
I really don't remember what I got.
I think I passed by like 1 point when I went back and looked at it. Like 1 point. I was like, oh dang.
Hey,
But it's a
Still
pass.
passes.
I mean, a
Take
pass
it.
is a
That's
pass, right?
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
I just don't. I don't even know. I know I kind of looked, but then I just completely forgot it. But
Yeah,
so
I
you
didn't go
kinda
back to
did the
look for several months.
You're like, if I go back, it's gonna change. It's gonna
Yeah,
pay
right.
bills. they corrected something. No, I can't handle that. So you traveled for a good amount of time, pretty much your whole entire career.
Yep.
Now, how we're gonna talk about kind of transitioning now. Now you're officially a recruiter, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So how did you kind of switch from being into the field into recruiting? Do you still treat occasionally? Do you still take a contract if you want? Kind of all that jazz.
So I am still keeping my license active. I just started recruiting in May, so I'm still a fairly new recruiter, learning some of the ropes. But yeah, so I was actually a traveler with Pioneer Healthcare, and matched with my recruiter, and honestly, like back in like literally going back to Alaska, like that's when I started talking to recruiters. I had 3 that I was talking to, and when I passed my boards, I reached out to all of them and was like, "Hey, I passed. Let's go. Let's find me a job." And literally nobody responded to me except for my recruiter from Pioneer.
Aw.
Yeah. So I was like,
Sweet.
"All right, well, you're
You
responsive
win.
and you're gonna help me out." And like we've literally actually come full circle. She's now my boss. So
Oh, that's
um,
great.
yeah, and we've become, we've formed a really good friendship throughout, the years that I've been traveling and all of that. So, it's really cool. But yeah, so I don't remember where I was going with that.
It happens to me all the
We
time.
do the same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
All the time.
So I
I
was, working and, really, I I got, burnt out with PTA, and there's no real advancement necessarily, right? It's either go back to PT school or maybe be a DOR, which I would never do. Uh, there's just nothing else you can do. And so I really, wanted that, something I can grow a little bit more into. I'm not really stuck in. Um, and actually had talked to my recruiter, and I think they had mentioned it as a joke and was like, wouldn't it be funny if you came and became a recruiter with us? And I was like, that's not a bad idea.
You're like, yeah,
So
sounds good,
Yeah,
I,
actually.
right.
doing home
Joke's on
health,
you.
with home health, you have a lot of time on your hands and sitting in your car driving, and I had a lot of time to think about it, and it just really grew on me, and realized that that was another way that I could not only help patients, but also help, other recruiters and traveler, or other, not recruiters, but other travelers, in the industry and all of that. So that's kind of what made me want to take the jump, and made the jump. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna keep my license active. I haven't treated since I started in May, but definitely keeping the option open. Maybe for some home health or something here and there on the weekends or
Yeah.
whatever. But I really want to get settled in this role first,
Yeah,
before I
which
go
totally
back
makes sense.
into treating. Yeah,
Yeah,
And then
it's
just
almost like you can kind of have like a mix in a way.
yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And I was just out of curiosity, the other like your coworkers or other recruiters, do they all come from PTA backgrounds as well or PT backgrounds?
No, I am the only therapist as a
Oh wow.
recruiter in our office.
Okay.
I think we have one other girl who was a PA, or not a PA, but a physician's assistant, um, or sorry, medical assistant. She was
Oh,
a medical
MAs.
assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm the only therapist, which actually I have found has been a huge asset in picking up the job as a recruiter. I've picked it up really quickly, a lot of the lingo and, knowing productivity and the different settings and,
Yeah,
the difference between
expectations.
acute
Yeah.
and outpatient and
Mm-hmm.
inpatient, all of that kind of stuff. So I can really talk to people and know what they're talking about, just the industry language, I guess, kind of thing, to really understand. So that's definitely helped me. And when you have somebody that's lived the same life that you're trying to live,
Hmm.
it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, a lot more relatable.
I was
Absolutely.
gonna be like, my next question is like, do you find it now actually like you have better communication, even though you're kind of newer in this role? Do you feel like you've got better communication with some of the people you're recruiting and working with because of the fact that you can fully relate to what they're requesting or what they're looking for or what the job entails, and you can be like, "Ooh, this person's actually going to be a good fit for them," versus where it's like sometimes when we get people who've never done the job, they're like, "Oh yeah, you'll fit fine," and you're like, "No, that's going to be a horrible matchup. That person who just came from all outpatients going to hate going into this like setting. Um,
Yeah.
that's not what they want at all. Like, do you feel like you kind of got a little bit more better handle on all of that, and that's kind of showing in your relationships?
I think so. I mean, especially, and a lot of our job is making cold calls and just calling people and say, "Hey, like, do you need a job? Are you looking for a travel job?" That kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
when you do get someone on the line that that is looking, I make sure I'm like, "Look, I was a travel PTA before I was a recruiter, and you can like." It's almost like a palpable shift. They're like, "Oh, okay, like you get it,"
Yeah.
You've
kind
done
of a
it.
thing.
A
Yeah,
lot more
you
relatable
get
for
it.
sure.
Yeah, so when they say they don't want sniff, it's like, I know why. Like, I've lived it.
What? Well, and I think the thing too is like, I don't know, like being a PTA, I think we've all at some point had a recruiter reach out to us for traveling or for something like that, and it's like, you know they tell you all these great things about it, but you're like, okay, what's it really like? And I feel like you get to give them that like actual information of like, no, I did it, I went out and I lived it, and this is what it's truly like going into new places every single time. Treating, how was it like, all that kind of stuff, and you can kind of give that true insight where it's a lot harder for people who've never done that.
Yeah, for sure. No,
So.
absolutely. And like, a lot of other recruiters just go on what, they've heard from experiences from their other
Mhm.
travelers and stuff. But it's definitely nice to be like, look, I've lived it, or I've, I see some jobs at facilities that I've worked at and I'm like, oh, I've worked there. I would totally go back. Or,
Hmm.
I may not send you to that one, or, because I know what it's about because I've been, worked there before, or,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, or that area, I can say, I did home health in San Francisco. So like I know that whole area, fairly well. And can kind of be like, okay, this is a safe place to live or find housing
Yeah.
here, or, that kind of stuff. So it definitely helps, having known the area and worked, a lot of California and different places. So
As
No,
far as
that's
like
awesome.
sending people like to their assignments, do you still send them like all over the country, or do you only handle like just the West Coast, and then someone else will handle like the East Coast, and so on and so forth?
we staff all over the country.
Okay.
We literally have jobs from coast to coast. I would say the West Coast is more popular, but I think that's going to be the same for any company. I mean, and that's just where jobs are, and I don't know why specifically California. I don't know why, if maybe it's because it's so big, but
You're
I would
cheap.
say the majority of jobs are in California. So,
Okay.
um, or a good chunk of them are. But we do have jobs, Florida, we have jobs in, Maine and, East Coast, Midwest, all over the place. So,
But every recruiter
Yeah.
will handle like all over the country,
yep,
right? Okay.
yep.
And then do you usually kind of stick with someone once they kind of take a contract with you? Do you kind of walk them through, or are they kind of being passed from recruiter to recruiter? How does that usually kind of go?
Yeah. So we, at least on, with Pioneer, if we try to build connections. That's our biggest, our not our biggest goal, but one of our biggest goals. We want to form a connection with you. We want to get to know you. Like I said, I formed a really great relationship with my recruiter at Pioneer, and we became good friends. Like I send her a Christmas card every year, kind of friends. So
Hmm.
we want to get to know you. And so if communication hasn't happened, then that leaves opportunity for another recruiter to kind of swipe in and pick up that traveler. So when you reach out to a traveler and then you're getting, messages or texts or calls from them every week, that's why, because they want to keep you, under their belt, so that nobody
Yeah.
else can kind of steal them, because it can get a little sharky sometimes,
Yeah, I can see that.
when somebody wants a job and you're looking for that booking, and like, oh, that person hasn't reached out in two
Get
weeks, like
it?
I'm gonna call them.
I'm gonna do
So
it.
yep, exactly.
Well, and that kind of takes me into my next question. Like, what's kind of like your day to day? Like, if someone's looking into transitioning out of, because I do feel like if we're transitioning out of the field, I'm kind of just saying this more in general, we are starting to take new roles in recruiting, in insurances, like where we know the aspect, but we're not actually working the field itself. So for someone who is looking at maybe like, hey, I don't want to travel anymore, or I just need a break from the field, or any of that kind of stuff, and they're interested in becoming a recruiter, what does your day to day like kind of look like for you? I know it can vary with each company, but
Yeah. So when I interviewed, I asked, one of the questions I asked was, what do you think is going to be the hardest part of this job? And my manager said, meet in seat. So the fact that it's a desk job, and I would agree that's probably one of the hardest parts, is that, you go from being a therapist, you're up and you're moving and you're exercising with
hmm
your patients, and you're, moving and grooving and doing all this stuff on your feet. And then, you go to a desk job and you're like, oh, this is different. Like
yeah,
I'm in a cubicle,
Yeah.
and it's me, myself, and I, and, just kind of thing. So I would say that's definitely the biggest change for me. But other than that, I get to work, I check my emails, see if there's anybody that's emailed me, anybody I need to reach out to. I check my text messages, see if any of my travelers reached out to me, try and respond to those. And then, pretty much from that, it's just trying to, making cold calls, sending out emails, figuring out what the hot jobs are, what the pay is going to be, trying to match up. Okay, I have this person that I called and they said they want this job in this specific location. Okay, let's go look at my job list and see, what jobs do I have? And then talking to my account managers to be, and then if I don't have a job in that area, going, hey, I know you've had contracts with, these, XYZ places in the past. Can you reach out to them and see if they have any openings? Or, that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's, a job and you're trying to find a person to fill it. And sometimes it's a person and you're trying to find the job to put them in,
Makes
so
sense.
just kind of going through that and, figuring out, where you want to place, what you're going to do, who you want to put where. And, like I said, we're big on building relationships with our travelers. So just kind of reaching out to them, reaching out to my list of people, checking in, seeing how they're doing, people that I have on contract, making sure that everything's going okay with them. They're not having any mental breakdowns anywhere or anything, kind of a thing. And, just
They're
making
not
sure
like
they're
always a
doing
risk.
okay.
3 days in going, where did you send me?
Exactly. Exactly.
There's cows more than people.
Yeah.
That would be me. I'd be the one that people would need to check and be like,
Yeah,
where are
you
you?
would.
You still breathing?
Mhm.
Are you okay?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've definitely had times where I was like on the phone crying with my recruiter and I was like, came time to look for jobs and she was like, "Well, what if I send you back to Indiana?" And I was like, "Don't send me back. I can't go back."
On second thought, I
Hey,
like
we're
it
both
here. I'll be
there.
right here.
So,
Send me to
I've
the
definitely been
beach.
there.
I need a good view.
Right?
Rodeo Drive. Just send me there.
Right? Yeah. If
I was
only
like,
we Ugh.
I know, right?
like as far as your hours go, is it just like 8 to 5, or
Yep.
because you never know? Like, I'm assuming people can reach out like after hours, or you have like because we have like I know some PTAs that do like home health and they have like try to stick to a strict schedule, like only contact me working hours, after hours off, no way, weekends absolutely not. But because you're trying to build these relationships a little bit more, I'm assuming there may be times you work past 5, there may be times you work weekends, or no, you try to
I try and
keep a
stick to
strong
the I
line.
mean, it's pretty much 8 to 5. We do have, our calling app that we use on our computer. I have it
Okay.
downloaded on my phone so that I do have access, to see if somebody texts me or anything like that. So I can have contact. And, once I build up my traveler base, I'm not, you know, shy of giving them my personal number if they need something or anything like that, too. So definitely always available to be contacted, but, you know, not
Ideally, work
24/7.
hours, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ideally
I
work
mean,
hours.
I transitioned and I took a year off. I worked at Dell and I was an account manager. And a lot of things you do is the same thing. You have relationships with those, and it's just kind of about setting those boundaries up front of like, hey, I'll do my best to reach you. Like, if it's an emergency, though, like, I need you to say it's an emergency because if not, I got family and life too. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I might not reach back to you right away. And that's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah,
Just like you don't like to work, I don't like to work.
exactly. But, I've been really trying to build up the Instagram and, social media and reaching out,
Mhm.
to people through that. And, obviously that's on my phone. So sometimes I catch myself scrolling through my quote business or like work feed versus my and actually like I've been following, obviously with PT, it's the algorithms and,
Oh
I
Mhm.
got all
yeah.
this like PT stuff and like PTs, OTs, SLPs. And I'm like, I'll like be reading an SLP post. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I never like knew that before. Or, like learning stuff on my work feed. I'm like, oh, this is more interesting than my personal feed. Like,
I've done
Yep,
the same thing with our
absolutely.
feed. I'm like, ooh, this is cool. Oh, I like that. I actually I've stolen a couple ideas off of what
Yeah, a
I've just
couple
seen
couple
on Reels.
techniques from
Yeah,
yeah,
all the
there's a
people that we
ton of
watch,
stuff.
and it's like,
I'm
it's
like,
great.
I
wow,
wish I
yeah,
would have
right
known this while
now
I was treating. Like,
there's so many
So,
resources out there now. It's so crazy.
do you just, as a recruiter, do you just place PTAs right now, or do you also place like PTs, OTs, CODA, speech?
we do pretty much everything. So I work on the allied side. So no nursing, just therapies, but we do, PTs, PTAs, OTs, CODAs, speech, SLP, and then SLPAs, and then also school psychs we do.
Okay.
So it's a pretty wide range of people, and, opportunities. And, I've talked to some of my speech therapists. I'm like, look, I don't know anything about schools. Like, you're going to have to teach me. So if I say something wrong or I don't, mention something, like, you might have to teach me, which is a really cool part of this job is that I'm learning new things still too, about the
Hmm.
industry that I didn't know before. Um, but just different terminology for schools and different licenses and certifications you have to have and all that kind of stuff, so it's cool to learn, but it's
The
definitely
good old certs.
right. It's a good wide range of, people to work with too. So
Now, are you guys trying to, do you guys work with a lot of the states that kind of have it where, oh gosh, Ken, you might have to help me out right now, where, if you were
Compact state.
licensed, yes, thank you, compact state.
I got
could
you.
not say that. Yeah. See, that's why I said you had to help me out. Where, it's a compact state where, you don't have to get a new license. Are those easy to kind of get people in? Do people drift towards those?
I would say yes. I mean, we work with all of them. Obviously California is not a compact state.
Nope.
That's where we are right
Never.
now. And I don't think they will ever be a compact state, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it's California.
Yep.
But, definitely I would say compact states make it easier because then, you don't have to necessarily wait as long to get that licensure. You just kind of got to apply for it versus go through all of the, deep application, I guess, for
Yeah.
the license. So
I grew up in California. I can say it's stubborn. I'm allowed to. I spent enough time there.
I was a little upset though, because literally a week before I started as a recruiter at Pioneer, Indiana became a contract license, and that's my home license. And I was like, "You're
Dang.
kidding me!" Like,
Of
The
course.
timing.
Right.
They're just waiting for you to switch over.
They're trying to get Nevada to do it. I know people on our board are working on it, but the biggest issue they're trying to get past with it is the fact that Nevada government does not want to hand over the control of who's coming in and who's not coming in type thing.
yeah.
So like that's their biggest hurdle they're trying to get through. But man, we could desperate. I'll tell you this: we are short-staffed out here right now, so it is brutal.
Yeah.
At least on our end. But I had a question and I completely forgot it.
I do have a question. However, it's going to have to wait until part 2 of this interview. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all the things. Down below, we will leave links and contact information for Nicole if you'd like to reach out. And if you're interested, then definitely let her know. She can give you way more details than either Laura and I can. But until then, we'll see you guys in the next episode. The information in this video or podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained in this video or podcast is for general information purposes only and does not replace your professors or a consultation from your own doctor or healthcare professional.